चलो कर देते हैं. Good evening, everyone. This is Devatraj Bhattacharya from third year, Computer Science and Engineering Department. Today in this session, we are going to discuss about Django framework, which is a Python-based framework. Now, the whole perspective of developing an application, or we can call it a backend application, a backend based application. The whole perspective resides upon what we are trying to achieve from that application. Now there are different kinds of uh, you know stacks, technical stacks that we use usually for web development, in front end as well as back end. And the most usually used uh, kind is MERN stack, that we usually use, right? On that stack we have Express and Node, which is basically used for backend purpose, right? Now these two are based mostly on like JavaScript. These are written in JavaScript, so they have some kind of upper hand in developing uh, a full stack web application. But unlike Django, they are a little bit scarier and harder to implement on a certain level, and they are like they seem very complicated when you are trying to achieve something more robust and more lenient to whatever you want to do. Okay, sometimes in some applications we need a lot of more functionality and more futuristic approach in developing the backend, because most of the time we are not clear on what we are going to do, right? So the MERN stack, now let's just understand two kinds of terminologies. One is MVC and one is POC. So in that, in MVC architectural pattern, Django is utilized. Why? Because in MVC we are not exactly clear about what we are going to implement. Like we know that we are going to implement this, but we are not sure that we won't be expanding it. On the other hand, the thing with Node and Express is that we try to implement every little thing that has come to our mind. We are not expanding that software more, or we are not, trying to expand that software more. It is just built and it is deployed. This Django gives us, a very unique feature on its own, that we can add, we can remove a lot of functionalities through templates. Okay, and if we remove one, the other one is not affected. Okay, the modules in Node also works in a similar way, but still there is some kind of dependency, where if we make one module not work in a certain way, the other module gets harmed, and that affects our perception in developing a software. So whenever you are trying to develop a software and you don't know exactly everything about the software, or you don't know your exact goals, we try to implement MVC architecture. Now Django is one of the best frameworks to use for this purpose, to be lenient, to be to be considerate about future repercussions of your functions. If you are implementing some kind of function, some kind of backend logic, and if you want to implement something else also with that, these all can be implemented in Django very easily. So preferably Django is something that is easier to understand, easier to diagrammatically look at, rather than other frameworks. I would say that other frameworks are good also, like the MERN stack, but Django is something that creates a basic sense of design perspective, when you're developing a web application. So it's based on Python, which is also a very easy language to understand. It's a high level language, right? So this framework promotes rapid development and clean design. So as I said, templates. In templates, we'll be looking at that, what exactly that means. But templates are usually comprised of you know uh, basic HTML CSS files, under which we'll be implementing our actual code, right? So we need some kind of design on that, on our web application. That is the reason why uh, we use HTML and CSS, and rather than JavaScript. But also in case of authentication and data connection, we try to implement JavaScript because that makes the work easier in HTML and CSS only. But we do not use other frameworks most of the time. We do not need to implement other frameworks. So it is, as I said, it is scalable. uh, we can develop scalable web applications, and we can develop it very efficiently. Django empowers developers to build robust and efficient web projects, as I said. So this is a very basic introduction about Django, and let's see. Now I already explained why we should choose Django as our uh, mode of development or framework of development in a web application. The first and foremost reason I would say is scalability. Scalability, because Django's design and modularity enables easy scaling as apps grow in complexity and user base. So what that means is, when you are using some other framework, like I already mentioned, you get the modularity. Okay, you get the modularity, but scalability is hampered with that. When you are writing a functional code, uh, like you are trying to implement a functional code on the basis of backend in Node, right? Scalability is harmed. But in Django, you can have multiple views. Okay, you can have multiple views. But the same thing you have to do when you have to do in JavaScript, like Node, right? When you use Node, and the same thing you have to implement in Node. It seems very complicated. Maybe it's not very much complicated for senior developers, but it is actually, after a threshold level, it is complicated to implement, just in comparison to Django. All you have to do in Django is write down the views and URLs and models. Okay, but on the same time, if we are trying to implement it in other language, in other framework, okay, so we will be having different modules, and those different modules should have a different kind of association with themselves, and then we have to import each of those modules in other modules wherever it is required, and then there are complicated relationships between those modules. And when we are trying to add up a new module, again we have to manipulate the other modules and import those modules in these modules. There are different kinds of repercussions of those when we are trying to scale the project. If we have a very definite project, that okay, this is the only purpose of this project, and these are the only functions that will be required, there are no future uh, you know scaling factors that we will be needing to see, or risk factors we will be needing to see, then there is a high possibility, or there is a high effectiveness of using some other language rather than Django, whose design perspective is better, right? Like Stack. But when you're trying to implement an MVC application, when you're not clear about its future, the application's usage in future, what kind of things will be required in future, what things you have to change in future, when you're trying to do that, then you can use Django, because that's very specific. The other languages are very specific to what you have already done or what you have already thought about. Rather, Django is not very specific. Django is very versatile, and that's exactly what is written in the fourth point: versatility. It suits all projects of all sizes, from small apps to enterprise level systems, right? And the very important thing here is database connection. When you are connecting a database to your, you know, uh, say you are doing in Munstack, when you're connecting your database in your Munstack, that requires a lot of precision. Okay, and after a certain point, when you're connecting those database to your Munstack, there is a high possibility that your function might fail to achieve load balancing. So you have to implement a different kind of algorithm for load balancing. Now, in Django, there is a good thing in Django. You get your own uh, admin panel, and that can handle a lot of things. That can like really handle a lot of things on its own. uh, like not exactly on its own because it's not AI, but yeah, in other language and other Munstack. I'm just comparing Munstack with Django because most of the students run for Django admin, start project name. Now, some of you might ask if like what does it mean by Django admin? Why we are not just writing Django start project my site like others? Why can't we just write Django start project my site? If you do not write admin, then you are not permissible to modify that project. If you do not write admin, you are not permissible to modify that project, because you are not the admin. Like you form a for instance, you form a WhatsApp group. When you form a WhatsApp group, you are automatically the admin of that WhatsApp group. Now think you are forming a WhatsApp group, but you are not the admin of that WhatsApp group. Someone else is the admin. So you cannot form that WhatsApp group in the first place only, and then you cannot modify that WhatsApp group. So if you even form that WhatsApp group and there is no modification, so no one is the admin. Now you cannot do anything to that WhatsApp group because you are not the admin and no one else is the admin. So no one has permission of anything. They can use the options, they can use it, they can see it in a static way, but there is no management. There is no head of that. So when you are starting a project, you are starting as an admin of the project. Okay, after that, there will be people who will be logging into your system, uh, not your system, to the server from their system. Like I said, there are 100 networks, 100 nodes connected to the server. They'll be logging to the server, and you as an admin will be providing permission for changing the software, changing the website. If they are just viewer, or if they are like they are co-admins of you, or you know they are just members of the project, whatever the um roles will be, you will be providing those roles to the people who will be logging in, right? So for instance, there is a company, they have made a website. The admin is the head of the project, and the developers are developers. They can edit, the project. uh, but the viewers, who are the final uh, you know eaters of the project, is are not someone who will be editing the project, who will be in charge of writing the code. So they are not the people, right? So different kinds of permissions will be implementing. This is also a very good feature of Django. Now, as I already said, py manage.py run server. Now there is okay, this is py is written manage.py run server. You can also write Python. That depends on the version of your Python that you have installed. Okay, so that totally depends on the version. Now let's understand Django structure. See, in the MVC pattern, models define the data structure and interact with the database. Views handle the presentation and user logic. Okay, templates define the structure of the output presentation. The controller manages the flow of the data between the model and the view. This architectural pattern promotes separation of concerns and enhances code maintainability and reusability. In this statement, where I said what views do, what models do, what templates are there for, and what controller manages. Now, in detail, if you want to talk about it, which we'll be doing, models are basically um, you can say your utensils that you use in the kitchen. Okay, models are basically the utensils that you use in the kitchen. Views views are basically the different combinational functions that you will be using in while making the project. For instance, pour water, or mm, you know steam, or whatever, stir fry. These are the functions that you do. Okay, now the views will be defined, or they are kind of the presentation logic. These views will be utilized in a specific manner in your project. When we use the project, these views will be defining your user interface, your logic. Okay, these things will be implemented in the template. And what is the template? Template is what you are trying to do. Okay, I am trying to fry potato. Now what are the views that are required? Okay, this is what we'll be doing first, this that and that we'll be doing first. So whatever the work is to be done in the templates are there in the views. For that we require models. If this is becoming a little bit more clear, this is how things are working. Okay, now there is one thing that is missing here, and it is URLs. URLs are basically not written in Django structure, and the reason is because URLs are everywhere, but they do not come in structure of Django. They come in structure of network. When you are trying to go somewhere, you need a URL. Now, for instance, when you're cooking or frying potato, you're making French fries, and water is not available in your kitchen, what do? You go to the tap wherever there is water. You go to the tap. If it is not in the kitchen, go to the tap, you fill it up, and you filter it out, and then you use it, right? And in most Indian homes, they don't filter out, right? So you went from your kitchen to somewhere to achieve some task, and then you came back to your place again. This process has required you a path. That path is basically URL. You have done a work by going to a certain path and then came back. Coming back is an option. Okay? Coming back is an option. Okay, but you have achieved some kind of you know motion from your place. This motion is achieved by URLs. That means that you will be routed to somewhere else for doing some kind of task that will be achieved by URLs. Now, this architectural pattern promotes separation of concerns. Like I said, you will be, pouring water, stirring the pan. These are concerns, and these are separated. Okay, these are separated. And for different recipes, we'll be using these in a different way. So these are separation of this. This means that the separation, the concerns are separated, and this enhances the code maintainability and reusability. Now, to explain maintainability and reusability, we have to study software engineering in detail, and that is a way more wider topic to discuss in Django's lecture. So let's just skip that, but I'll explain what exactly that means. Uh, just to have an overview, if we are trying to implement, if we are if we are implementing two different recipes, after one potato fry, we are trying to cook cabbage, we'll be using the same functions. We'll be adding salt, we'll be pouring water, doing that on two different projects. So we use all these functions, we keep these functions in a different file. Okay, we keep these all functions in a different file, and for different recipes which are our projects, we use the same functions, so we call the same file for different projects. This is why we say this is reusable. Okay, this is reusable, and this actually provides a better maintainability, because all we have to check is our projects. We have written the function someday, like 10 years before we have written the function, then that's fine. We are just implementing the projects from those functions now. Fine. Like thousands of years ago, someone told to pour water, and you poured water, and now you are doing the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? So that's why maintainability is easier. Now you have to focus on how much to pour, okay, how to pour so that it doesn't spill. Okay, so this is why it is said to be maintain more, easy to maintain. It is reusable. Okay, now we'll be coming to some kind of details in. We have already discussed a little bit of details on that, but let's just talk about it. Models in Django, as I've explained, are like they define the data structure of database and tables. Okay, uh, we implement different classes in our models. I'll show you the code of that once. Uh, Django's ORM simplifies database interactions by providing an abstraction layer between the application and database. Okay, most of the time we um, like most of the time we use abstraction, but when you are trying to implement something very basic, you would not exactly need abstraction, but that's fine. Uh, Database model configurations are basically stored in models.py, which is here in this application file structure. Okay. Let's see. Views, as I've already explained, are responsible for handling the application's logic and interacting with the models. Like I already said, they will be interacting with the models, which are our database, right? They are functions or classes that process HTTP requests and return HTTP responses. Now, this is an important thing to notice. When we are talking about doing something, okay, when we are talking about doing something, we are doing it to the server. We're not doing it to anyone else. We are doing it to the server. We're sending something to the server. So it happens in a certain protocol. Now we call that protocol as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Obviously, right now I cannot explain what that means, but just think that in a certain rule or in a certain pattern only I can interact, change, modify, or do something, do the process. So in a certain way only I can do. Okay, so that protocol is basically HTTP protocol. Templates, on the other hand, are commonly used to generate HTML dynamically. Like I said, we use basic HTML CSS for building our templates, and these HTML files are not static on their own; they are dynamic. Like in HTML, we import some other HTML file. URL, like I said, URL routing to the browser. Uh, Views or middleware are the functions. These functions are related to the templates. and these are the models, which are the data structures, and this is my SQL database. We can also use NoSQL database also in this application. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but yeah, it's like you can use anything that you want. It depends on your like your purpose. Okay, you can use you can use MongoDB, which is NoSQL, SQL. Now it is said SQL. So yeah, understanding URLs. Okay, I'll just run through this, because URLs, understanding URLs is will be requiring regex, which is regular expressions. But let's just run through this. See, URL patterns in Django, urls.py file, which I'll share with you. Map the URLs to views in the application. In the views, which I already said, functions, the task that you need to perform. These tasks are mapped to URLs, or URLs are mapped to these tasks, right? So when you want to do a task, you go to a specific URL to do that task. That's why you will be routed to that specific position, that place. This is a regex based system that allows for flexible URL routing. By defining the appropriate patterns, developers can easily direct incoming requests to the corresponding views, making it a crucial component of Django's URL handling mechanism. This specifically just means that there is a URL, and we create the URL most of the time dynamically, so that we can map our URL to the views. And we usually use a primary key when we want to distinguish between routing of different objects in a specific function. Okay, in a specific function, if the value of some kind of variable in that function is 1, we want to map to a specific position, so we use primary key as that variable. So yeah, that is one thing, that is a one beautiful thing about Django, that we can use primary key, like we can use primary key for routing. Let's see how it works. Is what I've explained. Models define the data structure, the presentation. Templates define the output of the presentation, and controller manages the flow of the data between the model and the view. This is what we have been doing since the last 40 minutes, right? Uh, I hope that is very much understandable till now, the structure of Django. Okay, these things are not like not the things that you should be understanding in the very first lecture of Django. But let me tell you, uh, in Django, when you move far ahead, not very far ahead, obviously you will be implementing databases. So most of the time we are using SQL based databases, because Django is very much compatible with SQL based databases. So this is written SQLite, right? And we most of the time use this SQLite in our databases. Like, our databases uh, are basically NoSQL and SQL based, which is a different topic also again. But for just the purpose of today's understanding, we use SQLite, which is a specific uh, like category of database, and MySQL is also something we use as a specific category of databases, right? But most of the time we implement SQLite because it is easier to implement in Django Python, specifically Python. Okay. Uh, Settings.py file, there is something called settings.py file, and we usually implement our database structures in that file. Okay. uh, okay, that is, I think, enough for now to understand databases, but I'll just run through you for like a specific project, and then show you what exactly that project is about. Okay. So testing and debugging are essentials for ensuring reliability and performance of Django applications. Use built-in tools for effective testing, and that is very basic thing to understand. Okay. This is the conclusion. Let me show you one piece of code. Okay, let me just show you one piece of code. Look, if this is visible, okay. So this is an application that I made. Okay, this is an application that I made. We have our file or our folder, which is like this. This is my mentor. I hope this is settings.py, and this is basically where my databases are connected. See, SQLite, as I told, SQLite I've been using. Okay, I'm just going through the code. I'm not explaining everything that is written, what exactly that means, because that won't be understandable right now. Let's go to URLs. This is just about the admin panel that I was talking about. Okay, okay. Now path includes base URLs. Base.urls is coming from here, this folder. I'll show you that. I'll show you that. Let's see. Base is our skeleton that I was talking about, the functions, and this is our project that we have made. We can make another project here, another project here, another project here, and we can implement these functions. And that is why, no, these are not the functions, these things that we can use there. That is why this is reusable. Let's go to views. See, login page, you'll understand here. Login page is a view. Login page is a view. Then logout user is a view. Register page is a view. Then home is a view. Room is a view. User profile is a view. Chat create room is a view. Update room is a view. All these things are views. And what this means is that these are specific functions. These are specific functions which is based which is written to implement some kind of logic. For instance, let me give an example. Login page. We want to log into to the whole page. So we are authenticating the user. We are authenticating the user, and this is the code for that. Now we can use this function everywhere that we want. We can use this function everywhere that we want. Okay. So these are the views. These are the views, the tasks that we'll be implementing. Let's go to models. Models are the data structures that will be storing everything that we will be doing. For instance, we have created a room. The room will be having a host, which is again a data structure holding some kind of value. The room will be having a topic. The room will be having a name, description, participants, updated, created. Okay, this is time when it is updated. This is time when it is created. Now this is again message. Room was a class, message is also a class, and that is holding some kind of data. The message will be having a user who has given the message. Room, in which room the message has been created. The body of the message, what message is, when it was updated, when it was created. So these are the things that is residing in the models. Let's go to URLs. Okay, let's go to URLs. See, path, login, views or login page, name login. When we are logging in, this is the path of that page. This is the part when we are registering. Logout, um, then we are at home, so there is like specifically default. It's our default path. Now, as I said, primary key. See, this is what we have written. Int primary key. Room, and we want to go to a specific room. That specific room will be in our primary key, right? Because there will be multiple rooms. We want to go to a specific room. There will be a primary key for that room, and same for profile. And then we are doing create room as a function. So this will be we will be directed to that room or something. So these all are the paths through which we can go. So these are there in URLs. Let me show you templates. Okay, let me show templates. Suppose this is my template, and this has uh, it's very specific. It is HTML only, nothing more than that. And this is what makes it dynamic. Okay, we are running a for loop in HTML. for message in all room messages, we will be displaying the message. Okay, we'll be displaying the message and everything. So these are the templates. Right? These are the templates. See, home, delete, feed component. What we will be looking at in the project, these all are the templates. Okay, these all are the templates. Okay, and this is my environment that I've created. Once I want to start my project, I'll be activating the environment. I'll be activating the environment and I'll be starting my project. So I hope that is clear. With that, this is a very basic understanding of Django, and sorry, this this whole thing in this whole thing um, in this whole thing uh, let me say, yeah, okay, this manage.py file is very important. When we started the project, I said python manage.py run server. So the server is running for all these files. Server is running for all these files. The server can see all these files that reside. So, so basically that's the conclusion for today's session. I think the basics of Django is clear. I think the basics of Django is clear, and I hope that someone or the other pursues Django and finds it easier to understand. So I think that's all. I'll be stopping my stream.